feel less of a fraud now. No. First and foremost, hello, and
Hi.
thank you so much for being here and for I would say attending, but I'm kind of in your place right now.
I was also gonna say thanks for having me, and yet I guess I'm hosting you as well.
You're hosting me, hosting you,
Yeah, exactly.
hosting Mike, no. But
Thank you for allowing me to host you while you host me. I love it.
And for those watching, I'm recovering from a sickness. Lost my voice. Anyways, so if you notice anything off, there's that. But otherwise, let's jump in.
Sounds good.
All right, so today's topic is about limiting beliefs. That's kind of the cliffhanger that episode 3 left off.
Yes.
And episode 4 would jump into. So, first and foremost, Mel, would you please define limiting beliefs for us? What is limiting belief?
Yeah, for sure. So I think in order to say what a limiting belief is, I'll just first say like what a belief is, right? Because I mean we all have them, we all know about them, but we don't really stop to think about the nuance of these things. So a belief is very simply put just the acceptance that something is true, right? So for example, like a statement is true or that we believe something is real. So for example, if you believe in God, right, that's a belief. Right, so it's something that you formed inside of you. You usually have a representation of it inside your mind. And you have a very strong acceptance as like of the reality of this thing, or you see this as fact. So for example, I believe in the power of hard work, right? So I believe that hard work is something that gets you far, that gets you success. For example, that is a belief, right?
Okay.
Beliefs in general are formed from our surrounding, our culture, right? Our parents, right? They're passed down from generations. So for example, again, the belief in God, for example, right? If our family is particularly religious, that's usually something that we kind of grow up believing because it's in our environment, right? So there's different things that we believe in. Now, a limiting belief is a belief or a thought form that's in our unconscious mind that is so set that we can't believe that anything else is true. So it's like this thing is fact, and it actually impacts our behaviors. It impacts our patterns, and it impacts our results. Because when we believe, for example, one of the most common limiting beliefs is I'm not enough, right? Or I'm not good enough. In whatever sense you want to say, right? I'm not capable enough. I'm not smart enough. I can't do X, Y, Z, right?
Yeah.
When we believe something like that, and we believe that to be true so strongly, it actually guides us, and it completely, like the name states, limits us in life. Because if I believe that, for example, I'm not capable of making money, let's say, right? That's a pretty common belief that a lot of us have. I'm going to continue to run up against roadblocks that stop me from making money. And that's something that I can stop there. We can talk a little bit more about
let's pause.
Mind. But basically it limits you in life.
It limits you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I know it's a lot there.
That was a lot. But wow, okay, so first let's define or redefine what subconscious and unconscious mind, like even just in layman terms, like just for anyone.
Yeah, perfect. So your conscious mind is your thinking mind, right? It's your rational mind.
Like logical?
Yes, so you can say your logical mind, it's the one that you think with, it's generally the one that you make decisions with. So if in this moment I'm like, I'm kind of hungry, I'm going to go eat, a piece of cake, whatever.
Is that like the right side and the left side of your brain? Like the... Or is it different?
So not necessarily. So the right and left hemispheres, they do have different kind of purposes, but essentially, if you really want to get like technical with the brain, it's kind of the prefrontal cortex. So essentially that rational mind that kind of makes decisions. Now your unconscious mind is actually kind of like, we call it like under the surface, right? So it's all of your beliefs, your thoughts, your patterns that you might not be aware of. And this is where, like, this fact is pretty crazy, but your unconscious mind is actually responsible for 95% of who we are, like who you are, like all your thoughts, your beliefs, your patterns, your behavior, which is kind of crazy because most of the time we are actually completely unaware of what is going on in our unconscious mind, right? And so it's essentially that that part of you that runs your entire being. So it's pretty important. I mean, you know, if you're making decisions, like I always say, the conscious mind is the decision maker, right?
The conscious mind is the decision.
But it's the decision maker, but the unconscious mind is actually the action taker. So unfortunately, if you say, I'm going to get up and I'm going to, I don't know, put in this application for this job or whatever.
Yeah.
But then you sit on your butt all day. I was like, I don't want to say other words. You sit on the couch all day and you don't do it, right? When you made a very clear decision in your head, you're like, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to get this thing done, you know, and I'm going to clean out that thing that I've always wanted to do, and I'm going to, you know, whatever it is, right, for every person. But then you end up not doing it. You end up procrastinating. You end up like, you know, whatever it is that's coming. Sorry, I know it's hitting close to home. Sorry about that.
Oh, man.
But that is your unconscious mind. And the last thing I'll say about that, the reason that's so important, as you can see, it completely affects you day to day. And if you're not aware, or if they're not aligned, and your conscious mind is saying one thing, but then, you know, your unconscious mind comes in with a limiting belief, which we'll talk a little bit more about, it's going to completely divert you, and you're just going to end up somewhere else entirely. Pretty important.
Yep. I started, like, as you were talking, I was thinking, oh man, that was me a few days ago, just not wanting to, like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and then just not wanting to get out of bed. And I'm thinking, like, oh, I have low motivation, I have low discipline, low this, and maybe that's true, or maybe there is some type of limiting belief, some type of thing that's holding me back. And I wonder, my kind of follow-up to that was, how does limiting beliefs go hand in hand, or go in relation to, if at all, to making, as you were saying a little bit too, making choices, like impulses? Because if your subconscious mind is kind of making the actions, then if you do things impulsively and you're like, oh man, why did I do that? Is that kind of the unconscious?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, so actually, another way of thinking about the unconscious mind is like that autopilot mode, right? So when you feel like you made a decision, or, you know, there was a pattern of behavior or an action that you took, or, you know, something that you just, all of a sudden, you just said something, or you did something, and then you catch yourself doing that thing. You're like, wait, why did I just do that, right? It's because that comes from your unconscious mind. There's a belief, there's a pattern of behavior that has been formed from your beliefs, right? So if you have a really deeply ingrained limiting belief, right, that has been there for a long time, and it's, let's say it's like really deep-seated in you, it almost becomes part of your identity, and then it impacts the way that you behave every single day. So, you know, it'll tell you what to do or what not to do. And the thing is, because this is happening in your unconscious mind, you're not aware of that conversation that's happening inside of you. And it's happening so quickly that, you know, you're about to try something. Maybe you get up, you know, I don't know, let's say like you're at a bar with your friends and they're singing karaoke, and, you know, you're like, oh yeah, you know, I'd like to try to sing a song today. And then you like go to get up to go sing this song, and then all of a sudden you're just like, no, it's not happening. And, you know, you sit down, or you're like, nah, I'm good. I'm actually not, you know, I'm feeling kind of tired or whatever. And you're not really sure consciously what just happened, but maybe under the surface, there was a whole conversation that happened of like, you know, you're not a good singer. They're going to make fun of you. What if you get judged? What if, you know, oh, that so-and-so is an amazing singer. You can never sing like that. And, oh, you're going to embarrass yourself. You're going to make a fool of yourself. And like all of that happens so quickly. Like there's just all this chatter that's coming from your beliefs, right? And that's why limiting beliefs are so important, because they completely run the show when it comes to our behavior. So, you know, absolutely, like you were saying, like when something, you know, if it's this impulse, right? If all of a sudden you do something and it felt like autopilot, that's because there's a belief system that's running it. There's something there that's telling you, you know, whatever it is, like telling you to do something or not do something, or, you know, you're not capable or whatever it is.
Yeah. I myself am just trying to digest this, even though like I've had multiple conversations with you in the past. I'm like relearning it right now too. I'm like, oh man, I forgot. Like I think we should take a step back. Yes. I'm trying to figure out what because it felt like a lot.
Yeah, we can definitely unpack it if you want, and just kind of go step by step, because I know it's a lot and it's important, and I think if we can grasp even just kind of the basics of it, I think that will really help. And if you'd like, we can also chat a little bit about how once we start to identify those limiting beliefs, right? Because that's important.
that was what I was gonna say. Like if someone was just like, what it like? Oh, I just heard about this thing, limiting beliefs. I keep hearing about this. What is this? Okay, so we kind of defined it. We went very into detail, which is awesome. But like taking a step back, like whoa, hey, I'm just getting started. I don't want to get into like this crazy belief system. Like it sounds a little woo-woo. It sounds like, what is this unconscious mind? I'm just kind of here for Spider-Man, or you know. But like if they're like, oh, you know, how can you put this in words that are like simple yet like, oh, you know what? I do relate to that. Oh, wait, no, I have been in the karaoke room, and is that what that is? I guess that can have that label, right? So like, my question I have for you is, so someone just getting started, how do they find their limiting beliefs, or like, do they even start searching for it? And then the follow-up is, how do they work through it? But let's start with the first one.
So I think, if you don't mind, I'll kind of take us through a super quick exercise, because I feel like that's actually the best way to do it. You like dive right in.
I'll try my best.
Oh my goodness. So for anyone, you know, watching, and if you're curious, I think you learn by doing so well. A lot of us do. I was going to be doing this thing. He had no idea. But it's really simple. So basically, if everyone could just close their eyes and just take a nice deep breath in. And I want you to just think about all the things that you want to accomplish. It can literally be one thing too. So just one thing that you'd like to accomplish, one thing that you've been wanting to do for a long time. Like I know that for you, Baniel.
My secret identity.
Sorry. I just totally wrote no. So for you, for a while, it was actually doing this YouTube channel, right? Mm-hmm. Like you've been wanting to do this for a long time, right? So I want you to really think about this thing that you've been wanting to do. Maybe it's one thing, maybe it's a couple things, maybe it's a career change, maybe it's just exploring something new, maybe it's even a new hobby, whatever it is for you that you've been wanting to do, but for some reason you have not done it, right? So really think about that for a second. Okay. So I want you to first get excited about the thing and just think about like how cool it would be if you did do it and what it would feel like. And then I want you to ask yourself, why? Why haven't I done this thing? Right? And when you think about how great this would be, the yeah buts that come with that, those are your limiting beliefs. So all of those excuses, the things that come up, like I don't have enough money, I don't have enough time, I don't have the certificate or the training that it takes, or I don't have the skill for that, or I need to go out and learn a million things before I can do this thing, or I need to, hire someone that can help me with this, or whatever it is, right? Sometimes someone who wants to write a book, they're like, well, I'm not a writer, I'm not good at writing, I've never written anything before, right? Whatever it is, especially if it's your first time, you might have a lot of ingrained beliefs that tell you that you don't have what it takes to do that thing. So first step, think about something in life that you want to do. And then ask yourself why you haven't done it. Chances are you're going to get a lot of responses from your mind that tell you why you haven't, right? And those are the things that you have accepted as fact. And you might kind of look back at me and say, well, but it is true. I don't have the money for that. Or I don't have the time for that. Or I don't have XYZ certification or whatever it is. Those things could be true in your reality right now, but that doesn't mean that they have to continue to be true. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but that's kind of the basis of how we start to discover our limiting beliefs. We start to ask ourselves the questions like, why haven't I done this thing? And that's usually the key to finding them, because those are the things that are stopping us from doing the things we want to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Something that came up for me was time allocation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, why haven't I done these things? I'm like, well, it's because I need to be working so I can make money, so I can do those things. And I'm like, well, you want to do those things so you can make more money? And then, well, it's because I don't have enough time. I'm either working or I'm sleeping or I'm working on YouTube, right? It's like, but you want to, yeah, anyways.
Oh, yeah. But that's important that you share that, because I think so many of us have that same belief, right? There was actually a really good TED Talk about that. I forgot what it was called, but it was about time management. Like, it's not, you don't have a time management problem, you have like a energy problem. I forget what it was called, but it was really interesting. And basically her premise is we all have the same amount of time, right? We all have 24 hours in a day. Right? And how come there's some of us that are, using that time and accomplishing all these things, and others are sitting around saying, I don't have enough time.
It's
right?
the energy.
But we
totally.
all have the same amount of time. So it's really about like what we do with that time and how we really allocate. I always say this to people. It's like your energy allocation. Where are you putting your energy? Because it's, you and I have the exact same amount of time, right? But we might take that time and we might not be using it in the best way possible, right? So where are we putting our energy is a big one.
I was gonna save this till the end, but the next talk after sometime in the future, perhaps, maybe those of you watching get a little hint of the next arc of Spidey Band is energetics.
Oh, nice.
But all right, well, that's all I'll say about that. That's all I'll say.
A little teaser there.
Yeah. Oh man.
We Spidey jumped forward there for a second.
And then okay, that's amazing. So we closed our eyes. We really thought about what we wanted to do. We felt really happy about it, and like excited and visualized ourselves doing it. And then thought about what it is that's blocking us from doing it. And Mike, real quick, Could you? It's still recording, right? Just making sure.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Sometimes the low power shuts off the recording or something. Thank you, Mike. So as I was saying, they're visualizing themselves doing it. They're getting really excited, and then they think about what's holding them back, and then okay, they've identified perhaps potential limiting beliefs. So how do they begin to kind of tackle them? How do they begin to work through them?
Yeah.
Again, in like layman terms, or like making it as simple as possible for like anyone from like the age range of like 8 to 25 that, you know.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously there's a lot of
Yeah.
more complicated ways that we could do it. But I think the very first thing is just start to challenge them. Like really start to challenge your limiting beliefs. So if you feel like, you know, I am not good enough to do, you know, this thing that I really want to do, that I really want to try. You know, maybe so an example that just came to me too, I don't know if this is for some people watching but I just thought about this. You know, if you're someone that kind of is a little bit creative and maybe you've wanted to do something in the creative field, you know, for example, like, I don't know, you really like drawing, but for whatever reason you feel like you're a little bit blocked, like you never want to show people your drawings, or you think that, you know, I can't go out there and like make a living, right? So a really common limiting belief is actually this like starving artist stereotype, right? And what's crazy is this could have come from, and like this is just to give you a little idea of like how they're formed. I'm not going to go into like, you know, the complicated science behind it, but let's say you're 2 years old, or maybe a little older, 4 or 5, you draw a picture. You go into the kitchen and you want to show your mom your picture, but your mom's super busy and she's cooking dinner and she's distracted. And so, you know, you show her your picture and she's like, yeah, okay. You know, and kind of just like pushes you aside a little bit, or, you know, not really ignores you, but she's just super distracted. Unfortunately, to that little kid, you know, that's a little hurtful. And maybe they think, oh, I guess my mom didn't really like my drawing. And what can happen is you can make a decision that like, oh, I'm not a good artist. I'm not good at drawing, right? And that then gets further and further ingrained over the years, right? There might be other examples of things that happen. And then you start to think, well, I'm not good enough to make money with this thing. And it doesn't have to be drawing. It can literally be anything. But this is just a little example, right? And then it starts to kind of perpetuate this idea of, oh, like, I can't make money with this thing, even though I really love it. And I'm, you know, sometimes I feel like I'm good at it, but then the mind starts to tell you I'm not good. So really challenge that belief, right? If you start to notice, right? Because noticing is the first thing. That's the first step. We have to, you know, get those Spidey senses tingling, right?
Yeah.
And then you start to notice what you're noticing, right? See, oh my gosh, you're right. I did have a thought, right? So, another thing. Notice what's in your body. That's a big thing. Connect to your body, because there are almost always feelings attached to these beliefs. So if all of a sudden you notice that you did something, like you were talking about the autopilot, right? And you're like, wait, why did I just do that thing? Or why did I stop myself from doing this thing? Or why do I feel, you know, so afraid, or so whatever it is around this situation, you know? Take a moment, notice what you're feeling, and then ask yourself, what am I thinking? What was that thought? And you'll be surprised. The more you do it, the more things will start to come up. And you're like, oh, I just had a thought that I'm not good at this. Or, you know, everyone else is better. Or people are going to laugh at me, or whatever that is, right? And then when you find that, challenge it and say, well, what if that weren't true? What would I do? And then you say, well, what's the opposite of that? I can do this thing. You know, or you start to look around, look for examples of people doing the thing that you want to do, right? And start to tell yourself, well, if I were this person, what would I believe? And you can kind of tell yourself like, well, I believe I'm strong. I believe I'm capable. I believe I'm this. And then start to try to take it on. Almost see it as like a game. Like try on the hat of I'm smart enough, or I'm good enough, or I'm capable, or you know, I'm strong like Spider-Man. And I'm like
put on that mask and pretend you're
exactly. that. Put on your superhero mask and cape and whatever, the suit, you know, whichever superhero you want to be that day. And actually you can make it a game. You can make it fun for yourself. You can say, I'm putting on my, you know, my strength today, because maybe you need strength, or I'm putting on my courage, or, you know, the belief that, whatever that new belief is that you want to try. And then the thing is, your mind will respond to the evidence. So if you can prove to yourself that you can do something that feels hard, or you can do something that you were afraid to do, then you start to challenge those beliefs, and little by little your mind starts to think, oh, well, that can't be true if they just did it, you know? Because if you have a belief that says, I can't do this thing, but then you go and you do it, then of course your mind's going to say, I guess that wasn't true, right? So really start to challenge those beliefs. That's the first big step, right? And then there's definitely more to it after that. But a big thing too, and I love that you have your journal in front of you. I don't know if you all like writing, but I highly recommend getting a book, a journal, some sort of special notebook, because writing things down really helps. Like doing a brain dump, like when you're feeling pretty bad, like if you're feeling bummed out about something, if you're scared, if you're angry, whatever it is, writing it all out will help you. And then once you're calm, like you can, you know, take some breaths and look at it, chances are there's going to be a lot of limiting beliefs in that, in what you're feeling. And then you can take it and you can literally write down the opposite and just start to challenge your beliefs. So if you wrote out, I'm not good enough, you know, I'm not capable, I'm not smart enough, I'm not talented, try writing the opposite and just see how it feels.
So if I'm an audience member, which I actually want to correct the age range, because I think I have analytics wise it says that I get it like 50 plus older sometimes too. But okay. if I'm just anyone, any age, thinking, hey, oh okay, so I did the exercise, I'm with you guys, this sounds really cool, and I'm kind of vibing with it, I'm jiving with it, I'm resonating with it, whatever word you want to use there, and I'm thinking, oh, a lot of like, I'm writing down a lot of limiting beliefs. Man, do I have these many? Do these many make up my core, like my all that's like the core limiting beliefs that's been holding me back always, like consistently 24/7, or does it work differently?
That's a good question. So yes and no. So we have some core limiting beliefs. For example, every single human has some version of I'm not enough or I'm not worthy. And for all of us, it can be have a slightly different flavor, different color, different feel, right? It could be I'm unworthy of this, or I'm not worthy, or I'm not good enough for XYZ. But all of us have a little bit of that, right? That is something that as a human being, we are going through, like every single one of us. And even those of us who have worked on these things a lot, believe me, there's always a little bit more. So there tend to be kind of your core main beliefs that, you know, kind of if you imagine like the little trees, or like, you know, we have the little branches, right?
Yeah.
But then for particular situations or areas in life, like maybe around friendship or around money or around career, or, you know, it could be your identity, just how you see yourself, right? There's different beliefs based on kind of the area of life, right? So for every part of our life, if you imagine it's like a little comic book or something, we have these pictures for each area of life, right? So if I think about money right now, or you think about money, or you think about money, there might be an image that pops up in your head, or it could be a feeling. It could be, I don't know, it could even be a thought, right? But somewhere inside, there is a little image that represents money for you. And there's a lot of beliefs around it. And it's almost like if you want to kind of create an image for yourself, right? There's like money in the center, and then there's all these little beliefs around that tell you, you know, whatever it is about money, like you and money, or money and the world, right? Because it's not, actually, that's a good point that I want to bring up. Your limiting beliefs are not necessarily just about you. It's also about the world, like how the world works, how life works, right? So for example, a really cliche thing that we've probably all heard before is, you know, money doesn't grow on trees, right? That comes from society, that comes from culture, that's something that our parents or our grandparents, or some of you great-grandparents maybe, would like used to say. And we pick it up and it becomes part of you. And so sometimes, even though, you know, you might not necessarily say it, but it might be in there somewhere. And you might find, when you start to uncover those little limiting beliefs, you might find that, oh, wow, that's crazy. I never thought that I, you know, had that in my head, but, you know, I have this belief that says, well, money doesn't grow on trees. Yeah. And then it's like, I have this mentality that maybe there's not enough money. Right? And that like, oh, money's hard to find, money's hard to get.
This scarce resource,
yeah, that
this
scarcity.
But maybe in our actual reality, it's like, well, maybe it does. Have you ever just went out and found $1 on the ground? Yeah. Oh, wow. Maybe that does counter that belief a little bit. Huh. Maybe they weren't wrong. I don't want to get too much into like oh, how much is kind of society or whatever inputting limiting beliefs onto us. That's a topic for a different thing.
Oh yeah, that is a whole other. Let's not open that Pandora's
box. Let's not open that. No. Yeah. Oh man. But something you said. I think I'm losing it. Let's take a little break. I'm gonna go up and get some more water. My tea is out.
Good.
Do you want anything? Do you need anything?
I'm good.
Hello. Anyone watching that's like, oh wow, this is so cool. I want to support this guy. Well, this could be a place to put your ad or thing that you would like to share and or partner with here. So, email is in the bio. Feel free to reach out. Okay, back to the show. Or episode. Marley said not to rush, but I'm like, I didn't want to take up her whole evening.
It's okay. Oh, good.
I swear I tried to make it very fast and speedy. But realistically...
Oh, we know what it's like, though.
Yeah.
We can talk for hours and hours and hours.
We can.
All right.
Oh.
Reset. It's like in the bloopers. Shake it out. Okay.
Shake it out.
Yeah, I know. I was just like that.
I did remember what I was gonna say, or what question I had, because you said something pretty universal, which was, you were like, okay, well, you noticed it, or you thought of it. Now notice it, and then try to like go back and challenge it, and that can be said, I think, about a lot of things.
Oh yeah.
So it's very applicable to this too. Like, okay, you noticed you're doing this thing, this action, this limiting belief. Okay, you're noticing it. That's the first step. Or you're feeling this emotion even, right? Notice it, and then, all right, and try to challenge it. Do the opposite, or whatever that is. It seems to be like a common thread of humanity, I guess. Yeah. So it's kind of cool thinking about like, oh, that's cool. That's like a
Yeah.
Yeah, to kind
Yeah,
of
for sure.
broaden that horizon a little bit.
Well, with fear, right? And I mean, you can probably argue that like fear comes from limiting beliefs, or limiting beliefs come from fear. But anyway, that's a whole other
Is that
little
like
tangent there.
the chicken and
exactly. Which came first? But you know, when you're talking about this, like applying this more universally, like challenging your fears. You know, this whole idea of feel the fear and do it anyway. You know, one of the kind of challenging, ironic little conundrums that we run into is that one of the best antidotes to fear is action. But sometimes when we're in fear, we're frozen and we can't take action, right? And so sometimes you're like, but I can't take the action. But if you just take a step, like literally just a tiny step, even if you're frozen with fear, even if you feel the fear, like that first step is acknowledging the fear, taking a breath and saying, okay, I get it. You're afraid. It's okay to be afraid, you know, and kind of validate that, because I think we spend so much time like battling our fear, right? And like arguing with it and almost shaming ourselves for feeling fear. And so I think that acceptance with non-judgment and saying, it's okay, you're afraid, that's okay, but we're going to take a step. And it can literally be a teeny tiny step. It doesn't have to be like this huge leap. It can literally be like a tiny step. But that starts to move the needle forward and it gives you momentum. And before you know it, you're taking action. And that action starts to combat the fear. And then you're like, oh, wait, I'm doing it, right? Because you're actually challenging your mind. You're challenging what you believe. Because when you're so afraid and you think, well, I can't do it, or I'm not good enough, or I'm going to fail, or I'm going to die, right? And then this whole like, but did you die? No.
You're still alive?
Right? You're alive. You're alive. You're breathing. You're okay. You survived, right? And so you can survive more. And that whole reaction, like that is actually like the what we call the reptile brain, or the reptilian brain, which is like that ancient part of our brain, right? And that part is the one that tells us that we're gonna die. And that literally comes from forever and ever ago, when we were literally running for our lives all the time, and we're on a field and we're being chased by a lion. And so you're actually running and you're like, if I fail here, I'm gonna die.
I think I've heard the term like the primitive brain,
exactly.
like your primal instincts.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, okay.
Yep. And that's exactly what that is. And so, you know, it's funny because even though we've adapted so much and we've come so far, our minds still live in that primal instinct and like that primitive setting almost of like, oh my gosh, this feels terrifying, therefore I'm gonna die, right? Because you don't know, like your mind can't tell the difference between like what is real or imagined, right? And so actually challenging it by taking action and letting your mind know, look, I'm okay, I survived, like that starts to rewire your brain already. It starts to tell it, look, you did it, you survived, you're okay. So doing new things isn't going to kill you, you're going to be fine, right? But it's so scary because you think, like sometimes our unconscious mind would rather stay stuck and only do the old things, like continue to live out those patterns because it knows that it's safe, right? So it's like, well, I've been doing this thing for, 10 years, 20 years, 5 years, however long it is, and I'm alive, I'm okay, right? It's like, but I have never done that thing before, so I don't know if it's going to kill me or not, right? And so like, it might kill me, right? And so actually trying to do new things and then see, I'm okay. We're alive. Right? Then your unconscious mind starts to go, oh, okay, it's not so bad. I can do this. We're alive.
We survived this. I think we can do a little bit more next
Yeah.
time. Are we good? Okay, let's do it. It's what the takeaway that I got is it's about taking just the tiniest 0.01%, 1% step forward, even if it's just a little, even if you're scared, but you still took that step forward, that's still bravery, that's still courage.
Yes.
Man, when did you first encounter your first limiting belief?
Ooh. I mean, I think I encountered it probably pretty young, but
Oh, yeah.
I guess like getting awareness of it. And,
Yeah, when did you first learn about it?
So when I first learned about it, so it's interesting. I read a pretty powerful book when I was like 16 or 17.
What was it called?
And so it was called The Power of Now.
Power of Now.
By Eckhart Tolle. I would say the first book that, and I know this sounds so cheesy, and like a lot of people say this, the first book that really changed my life was The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I don't know if you've ever read it or heard of it.
I have not.
But I highly recommend it to anyone that's kind of looking to just get a little bit more curious about like just getting a different perspective, right, on just this life that we're in. It's actually a pretty short book. It's a really good read. If you like Audible, it's on Audible, and the narration is beautiful. I love it.
Ooh.
So
I do like Audible.
Yeah. So I mean, however you want to do it, it's fine. But it's a pretty short book. It's beautiful, and it's just really all about finding your personal purpose. They call it a legend, but I mean everybody's different.
No, your personal. You're
like
finding your legend.
Like finding your own legend, your own purpose, like your own path.
Is that like being like the lead in your own movie?
Yeah, that kind of thing, exactly. Yeah, so you're the hero, right?
Yeah.
Your hero's journey, essentially.
In acting school, they taught you like the hero within.
Yeah. I love that. And so it's kind of about finding that, and then opening your eyes a little bit to like there's other things out there that we might not be aware of, but I read that, and then I read The Power of Now, which really starts to make you think about what he calls the observer mind. So it's like, if I can hear myself think, right? So if I'm sitting here with you and I can hear a thought in my head, then I am not that thought. And that is a really huge thing. So separating yourself from your thoughts and your beliefs, right? And knowing, like, if I can observe my thoughts, like if I can sit here and maybe, if we sit quietly for a minute and I can hear all of the thoughts that are going through my head, right? It can be simple things, it can be complex things. It could be I'm hungry, feeling a little tired, or, I wonder what, people are thinking about, whatever. Or, did I remember, whatever it is, right? But if I can be here and hear those thoughts, then those thoughts are not me.
Oh, right, because I'm here.
I'm separate from that, right? Because I'm the observer. I'm the one listening to the thoughts. I'm the one watching the thoughts, and also my feelings, right? Because the feelings are not me. And that really shifted things for me. And that was the first time that I really started to think about, well, who am I then? Like, what is... what part is me, right? Because I think most of us live our lives, like when we're in autopilot, thinking that our thoughts and our feelings are who we are, right? That we are those things, and they are facts. And so when we start to question that and we start to say, wait a minute, but if I can hear my thoughts, then I'm not my thoughts. Those thoughts are not necessarily real. And I can question them, and I can change them. And that's huge. So I would say, I guess the first time I kind of started to become aware was probably in my late teens. I didn't really explore it until my early 20s, I guess. And then it wasn't until I'm not going to go into that today, but I had a really crazy, really pivotal moment when I was 25. And it just completely shattered my worldview, and it was really, really, really powerful. And in that moment, I really started to question pretty much everything, everything that I had ever thought or experienced, and took me down this crazy rabbit hole. But I would say, that book really shifted things for me. So content like this, whether it's a podcast, a book, just a YouTube channel, having a source that you can kind of learn from, and that can, even if you don't understand necessarily everything, or you don't pick everything up, or not everything goes in, I think the thing that we need to remember is that we get the messages that are meant for us in that moment. So like, you could go back and watch this video multiple times, and I promise you, you will get something different every time, because you're a different you each time, right? Like, we're constantly changing.
Constantly
And so,
evolving.
exactly. And so, you know, you might watch it now and you might hear something and you might take a little nugget away. And honestly, if you just take one thing, that's great. Like,
Yeah,
that's awesome. Like,
honestly.
you just take that one thing and you run with it and you're like, okay, cool. And then later on, you watch it again and you're like, oh, I don't think I heard that the first time, right?
Mhm.
And so it's like, it's really powerful.
I heard something once that like, the thing that you do take away, that like after this video ends, or even if you just watched a snippet, a short or something of it, but that's the thing that like keeps you up, like, or that you just think about throughout the day, that's the thing that you should go down the rabbit hole even more of, or you
Yes.
should learn more about, or just, you know, that's the thing that it stuck with you, so go with it, see what you can learn from it.
Yeah.
So great segue to, what is an action that someone could do right now to take a step into this direction, into like,
Yeah.
I know that's pretty broad, but you could even list a few.
Yeah, for sure. So we kind of mentioned a couple of them, so I'll kind of go back.
Yeah, like
so
put it back here in this
definitely,
segment.
yeah, so definitely journaling. That's a big thing. So sitting down and writing out like the things that you want to do in your life, the things that, you know, you are excited about, but maybe you're afraid to do, and you haven't done them for whatever reason. So maybe even taking, I really love this exercise. You could have 2 different sheets of paper, or you can fold one sheet of paper, have one sheet of paper in front of you, and first list out all the things you want to do and the things you're excited about. And then when you're done doing that and feeling into it and visualizing yourself doing it, getting really excited, then I want you to take the other side, or, you know, the other sheet of paper, and write down all of your, what I call your yeah buts. It's like, I would love to do this, yeah, but blah, blah, blah. You know,
Yeah,
so it's like, exactly. So all the things, like the excuses, the reasons, right? The fear, the doubts, all of it, write it all down. And then you'll start to notice patterns. Like, that's the cool thing, is like, if you have a long list of things, you'll notice that you can probably pick out, you know, like 4 kind of umbrella, like overarching ideas. Like, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I don't have the money. I don't have the time. Like, overall, they'll kind of fit under these little headings. And then once you kind of have an idea of what some of your beliefs are, right, you can start to challenge them, start to question them, start to say, well, what if I didn't believe that? What would happen if I believed? And this is really key. I'm going to say something. I know a lot of us do affirmations. One suggestion that I have, if you have a really strong belief that you're not someone who can make a lot of money, starting to tell yourself, I'm a millionaire, like, that's not really gonna work, because what it does is it creates an internal struggle. Your unconscious mind, the one that believes that you can't get money, it's gonna start like calling you a liar. It's gonna say, that's not true. And so it'll just create a battle. But if you can get curious and ask a question, like, oh, I wonder how I can make more money right now. What's cool about that is that you're not stating anything that's going to create an issue inside of you. You're getting curious, you're opening your mind, and you're starting to look for solutions rather than getting stuck in the problem or stuck in the story. Because that's what we do a lot of the time. But if you say, I wonder if, or I wonder how, that's making you solution focused. If we sit there and just ask ourselves why, we could get stuck in the story all day long, right? So the why is really good to kind of pull up some of those beliefs. But once we have them, then we can start to look for solutions. So yeah, just getting curious. Curiosity is awesome.
Man, let me tell you, I'm learning stuff. I'm like, oh, you think I'm writing these down for y'all? No, this is for me. No, I'll share too. But man, yeah, dang. Woo.
It's a lot. I know.
Because a lot of it's hitting home too. I'm like, dang, I wrote down like, I am a millionaire. I am a millionaire, right? Like to make myself feel like, okay, I can get there. I can get there. But oh God, I was feeling that internal struggle, and yeah, no, this is for sure. And then it's God, this feels like a weird pivot, but I wanted to say it earlier, because I'm thinking about it now. Something we were talking about beliefs. We were talking about even like to extend the branch even further, morals and personal beliefs. What do we call them?
The limiting beliefs.
No,
or?
like your own.
Was it something we?
Yeah, like what I wrote down on it here. Let me.
Yeah, your values.
Yeah. Values. That's
okay.
what I'm looking for.
Yeah, there's a word there somewhere. All right.
So to be a little transparent and vulnerable, right? Like I'm 28, turning 29 this year, and I am just now really getting invested in myself, learning to love myself, feeling more self-aware, discovering what self-aware is, and giving a little bit of grace on that too, because it's a really tough process. It's not easy. So if you're going there and you're like tired and you're like, wow, this is a lot. Yeah, it's not easy, brother. But so I am just now at a place where I'm learning about like what I truly value, what my true like morals and values and things that I appreciate and love about my now close dear friends and people that I thought were my friends, and so like really like doing this work and just, if anything, whatever you take away, even if it's just making you a little bit more self-aware or a little bit more like, oh, I discovered this part about myself. I don't want to dive into this just yet. I'm not ready for that, but I discovered this about myself. That's really cool, and then it'll trickle down, just like Melissa was saying. I'll add my own word. It'll compound. Like one thing will lead to another. Like she was saying, when you take that first step, when you take that little inch forward, one thing will lead to another, and then slowly but surely you'll be like, wow, wow, I'm doing this, right? It's like that, like a Lego masterpiece. You can't just start off with the Lego masterpiece. And yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's
awesome. I want to wrap up with kind of one last little vulnerable bit for you, Melissa.
Okay.
Your secret identity. No.
No.
A question for you is, where do you think you'd be in your life right now if you never learned about limiting beliefs, never realized what was holding you back?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, that's a really great question. Honestly, I would not be doing very well, to be very honest. So, without getting too deep into
share
it,
as much or as little.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. So I had a lot of mental health struggles, right? So, I actually had very severe PTSD. I lived with crippling anxiety. I mean, to a point that I could have never done this. I mean, I had massive social anxiety to a point where, I mean, it got so bad that I couldn't leave my house. And, I would go to the grocery store and it freaked me out. Like it was bad.
Oof,
yeah. So, I know that I was in a place where I had so many beliefs about myself and such a deep lack of self-worth, right? And I really truly got to a very, very dark place, right, where I was really truly contemplating ending it all, which I know that's very heavy, and I apologize for, any triggers there, but I only say that to say that there is a point past that, and not only can we come back from the deep darkness and that heaviness, but we can not just bounce back, but bounce back so much higher and so much better, right? Because I think so many of us, unfortunately, are in a place of survival. And what I think gaining this awareness can do is move you from survival to actually thriving, to actually really, truly loving life. And it's not to say that there are never challenges, that there's never, difficult moments, but the difference is, so I'll give like a real example from my life right now. So the last couple months have actually been a pretty big roller coaster for me. I mean, I've definitely been through some very challenging moments in the last 2 months, right? I mean, you know all about it. My partner was in the ICU for several weeks. It was really scary.
Yeah.
But what I think what really prepared me for that was doing all this work and unpacking my beliefs, because I think in the past I would have had some sort of, program running in the back that would have told me oh, of course this happened because, terrible things happened to me, and this and this and this, all this stuff, I don't deserve to be happy and have a great partner. So of course he would, something would happen to him. And what that does is it creates so much more stress and so much more suffering, so much more pain, right? And we actually create a much more difficult experience for ourselves, right? We could be going through something challenging, and I hope it's okay to give this example, but Buddha called it the second arrow. So if you imagine you're in battle, right, and you get hit by an arrow. Now the arrow itself hurts, of course. You're injured, right? You have pain, you have physical pain. But it's actually what we do after that. It's how we respond to the situation, right? That actually creates the suffering. So sometimes pain is inevitable, but suffering is self-created. So, this external situation, right, is happening. It's difficult, it's challenging, it's painful, right? But if we start to take that moment and say, oh, this, and this, and this, and we add so much more to it, we create all these thoughts about it and these reactions to it, and we get negative when we get, right, then we're creating more suffering for ourselves. And that's what he called the second arrow. It's the second arrow actually comes from our own mind, right? We're creating that. And it's so much more painful, right? And so what doing this work did for me, discovering limiting beliefs and unpacking them and healing them and releasing them, it allowed me to take challenging moments and feel I still felt scared. I still felt pain. I felt tired. I felt okay, this is a lot. But I was able to sit and I was able to acknowledge my emotions, and I was able to say, I know we're going to get through this, and I know it's going to be okay. And I know without a shadow of a doubt that there's some reason why this is happening. I don't know why yet, right? But it has nothing to do with oh, this is happening because I'm not worth, blah, blah, blah. No, this is a difficult moment, but we're going to move through it. And I had the confidence that no matter what happened, I would be okay. And that's a really hard place to get to sometimes, but I think that it gives you the tools. So I really want to kind of offer that to anybody that has been going through a hard time, and they start to notice that they're having all these thoughts and reactions and feelings about the external situation that's happening, and creating more stories, right? And starting to notice, what am I creating around this? What am I telling myself? What am I feeling that maybe doesn't need to be there, that's maybe adding more suffering, right? And so just if you can start to unpack that will do so much for you. Does that answer your question? I know I said a lot there, but
Yes, and some, because oh, first off, thank you for being so open and vulnerable, because it's not easy, and once again, I very much encourage you and am willing and open, for you to speak your truth however it may come out. I know you were conscious and being like, oh, I don't know if I can say this, but I'll say it. I appreciate that, but like whatever, however your truth comes out, that's awesome. We're not trying to like impart any beliefs or anything onto people, which of course. But I do want to make sure it's important to me, that you say it unfiltered. However it comes out the way you want it to come out. So that's one, and then two, just thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that with us, because I did want you to share your story a little bit. I was gonna ask you to, but it came out naturally. So that's nice. That's amazing. Of course, as things go with Melissa, she's a dear friend of mine now, and so I'm honored and thankful that she was and it lined up so perfectly too. That she was the first one to be on this series of podcasts. I think I'm gonna label it Spidey Talks.
Oh, I love it. That's great.
Yeah. And yeah, that's that's all that needs to be said about that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for for putting yourself out there, because that's the thing, right? Like you're demonstrating courage and vulnerability, right? And that, like, and I truly believe that you can't have one without the other. Like you can't have vulnerability without courage, and you can't really have courage without vulnerability, because at some point you're going to feel a little bit vulnerable when you're being courageous and doing something new, right? And so demonstrating those things is giving other people permission, right? So it's like taking that action and putting yourself out there, and even having these conversations, and the content that you're creating is so powerful, because it just really, and it also allows people to know they're not alone, and that's really huge. So I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me on Spidey Talks, and I love it. I can't wait to see where else this goes. I know we could have probably talked for like 20 hours, but
literally, I'm forcing myself to 808. I'm forcing myself to cut it short, It's already been like an hour, just because we can just talk for hours and hours and spiral and talk about this and that and that, and maybe we will later. But for now,
the extended version.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
The Zoom call version. This series, I wasn't sure where to take it, or how vulnerable or to take it, like how fun and entertaining it should be, and then but like while still having some type of substance to it, because that was important to me. We talked about that too. And but I think as like, it's gonna be tough, but just really like sinking our teeth into like the ugly, the vulnerable, having the courage to do that, and I mean, if you stuck out this long, you do have the courage to do it, and I think the channel just naturally is going to gravitate towards that audience, and also just towards this kind of level of topic. And of course, it won't always be this kind of deep, but I think it will have some level of vulnerability, because ultimately, humans are pretty vulnerable, mostly, probably. Anyways, I'm not gonna farm tangent too much. Just want to say, thank you again.
Yeah, and, of course.
Lastly, very very closing statements. Roll credits is how can people find more information, either about you or limiting beliefs or anything? Do you have any website or any information?
Yeah, for sure. So my brand is called Curiously Connected. I did talk a little bit about curiosity, right? I feel like that's it, kind of where it starts, just getting really curious. So my website is www.curiouslyconnected.net. So you can find me there, find some information. Reach out, I have a form on there, so you can email me if you have questions. I also have a free download. I have some journal prompts that you can start with, which is a great thing to do. We talked a lot about journaling today.
Yeah.
And in general, there's a lot of great resources for limiting beliefs and things like that out there. Feel free to just start kind of exploring, maybe just some videos, some books, things like that. And like I said, if you want to reach out and ask questions, I'm happy to answer them, and maybe even share some other resources that you can use. But
yeah, because something I want to pigtail on that is exactly, like, there are so many resources and things out there, but however, if something we said, if our personalities, our shapes, and our vocal qualities, whatever it was that you feel a little bit more connected to, if it was either Melissa or I, you're like, no, I think it has to be you. That kind of, then feel free to reach out. It might be like, oh, I don't know, that's kind of weird or crazy. Just do it. You never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, I promise we don't bite. Sometimes not.
Well, spiders
bite. No, but really, genuinely, we both, as you saw, we love to talk. We have a lot of passion about this. I love this topic, and I just, I'm always happy to answer questions, because I know when you are kind of starting out on this journey and exploring, it can be a little bit overwhelming, and it can be a little, sometimes a little lonely. So, it's great to have people to reach out to for a little guidance or... Yeah.
And it's something that I'll add... Oh.
Yeah, no, go ahead. That's fine.
A little guidance. And then something that I'll add is this is something I'm learning about. I think that's my thing is I'm curious. I English is not my first language. I struggle with these things I'm not gonna name because I don't want them to define me. But I have so much to freaking learn. I have so much to learn. And so I'm just a student of life. I'm just so okay, I whoa, this thing is so cool. What is this? Tell me about this thing. What is this? And even different topics that I just don't even know about, whether it's limiting beliefs, whether it's about some scientific thing, some mathematical thing, some cartoons, whatever. I think that's something that I want this channel / the podcast to be more, is what can we learn? What can we take away? Because I think personally you can learn and take away something from anything.
Oh yeah.
And that could be a little double-edged sword, controversial or something maybe, but I don't know. Maybe that's part of just discovering yourself.
Yeah. Actually, just to add to that really quick, because I know we talked about curiosity really fast. So that question, what can I learn? That is truly one of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself at any moment. Because that's exactly, I believe, the same thing, that you can learn from anything, right? And so when you're going through a challenging moment, right, rather than getting stuck in what's happening, asking, what can I learn from this? Or what am I meant to learn from this? Actually opens yourself up to growth, to really learning, to really allowing you to move through it. And it actually helps you, it helps give you the tools, it helps give you the hope, it helps and it's really powerful, because it actually allows you to grow from the situation rather than get stuck or scared. I don't know if you've ever heard of the term post-traumatic growth.
No.
Which is really powerful.
I actually never have.
Yeah, so there's PTSD, right? So there's post-traumatic stress, and there's post-traumatic growth.
So yeah, post-traumatic growth. I never heard that actually.
Yeah, so it's a really cool. There's been some studies and stuff on how people grow from situations, traumatic situations.
Whoa.
Yeah, and so it's really cool. I definitely, if you're interested in that, I definitely recommend looking into that. But that's all just to say that we can grow, we can learn. And we can actually come out of even a really challenging situation better, right? Better, bigger, like thriving. And, you know, it's like I just shared that I've been going through a lot these last 2 months. And yes, it's been tough. It's been a roller coaster, and I've definitely felt a little out of sorts. But I kept asking myself what the lesson was. And it was really cool to see, like, oh, wow, you know, it's given me so much perspective, and it's helped me to really reflect on things and to, you know, come out with some more learning and some more growth. And I mean, one thing that it did is, like, I feel like, you know, my partner and I are so much closer, and we're more of a team, and we're really like, you know, I was able to really, really, really get present to my love for him, and really like what he means to me in my life. And, you know, I feel like it's not that I didn't feel that before, but I think that it just, that situation happening just made me so much more present to it, and has allowed me to live truly in gratitude for him and for us, you know, like, and it's been like this really beautiful thing where it's like, wow, I really, like, I'm conscious that I want you to feel every day how grateful I am for you. And like just how truly how much I love you, right? And that's been like a big thing. And you know, amazing. And then it's beautiful, because sometimes, you know, I think with relationships, like, you know, at the very beginning we're watering them, we're tending to them all the time, and then we feel like we're good, we're solid, you know, it's a grown tree. It's like, well, grown trees also need water and light and all the things,
oh, something else came up and we have to address that, or something else, and oh, I thought we were good, oh no, this thing came up because we're good, this other thing came up.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, would you say that, like, you feel it's like you wanted to feel, no, that doesn't make sense. I was gonna say something like his weight more, but like the weight of his love, but I think that was just a little brain thought I had to make me to help me understand what you said. That's awesome though.
Yeah.
That's really sweet.
Yeah. So just being curious, it really opens up so much.
I want to learn more about this post-traumatic growth thing, because is that like saying that since you grew, or like because you were traumatized in this way, like that is set, that's like a pre-save, like that's set in you, and then you're growing because of like that, or like with that,
in a sense. Yeah. So sometimes like these difficult situations or trauma that you encounter actually pushes you to grow, pushes you to, you know, actually like become almost a different like enhance those aspects of you, like the strength that maybe you didn't know you had. Or
let me ask this, is post-traumatic growth positive or negative?
It's positive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's really positive. So there's post-traumatic stress, which is, you know, negative, like that's like the PTSD, but then post-traumatic growth is a really good thing, because it's like you actually grew, you became a better version of yourself, you became a better person because of this thing that happened. I mean, I'm not going to get too much into it, but apparently, like, from some of the studies they've done, there's, like, people who are more hardwired towards it.
Towards growing?
Towards, like, growing and, like, you know, like, making something positive out of whatever they experienced. Like, I think there was a study with, like, these twins. They were identical twins that grew up in the exact same situation. I think their parents, you know, were drug addicts and had gone to prison. It was, like, a really challenging upbringing. And it's so interesting, because identical twins in the exact same environment, one ended up, you know, sadly in kind of a very similar situation, you know, on the streets, on drugs, like not doing very well. The other one actually started a very successful nonprofit to help people in those kinds of situations. And so it's so interesting, you know, to think like, well, what was the difference there?
Yeah, what was the difference?
Yeah, and so, I mean, a lot of it is like attitude, mindset, right? So kind of coming back full circle to like, you know, doing this kind of work and really becoming aware of what the limiting beliefs are, because sadly, when we're not aware and we don't look at it, it just runs us, right? It's like that autopilot. It's running under the surface, and it's, you know, causing actions and causing behaviors that we don't necessarily want, right? But it's because there's a belief there that's telling you that this is, you know, what you need to do, or whatever, what you deserve, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, anyway, I know that's like a whole other tangent there. But it is a really interesting like if you want to look at it, because I remember I read about it like a long time ago, but it really interested me because I was like, huh, that's a really cool concept. Like just the
concept of
post-traumatic growth.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think my brain started having trouble figuring out if we were still under the umbrella of post-traumatic growth or not, or if this was a little different farm road. Oh, right. Well, Melissa, let's go ahead and end it before we farm road anymore.
Seriously.
Yeah. So again, I'll put her website in the link below, and also any other social media / anything else to reach out to her in the link below. And if not, expect episode 4 to come out soon. I say soon, but man, with sickness and with everything, I'm trying my best to work on things and giving myself grace. But keep looking forward to those episodes and having this kind of in between it, learning more with me. And thank you again, Melissa, so much for your time, your energy, your efforts, and you as a person. I appreciate you as a person and for being there in my life.
Same. Thank you, and thank all of you for sitting with us through this whole conversation. And just being on this journey with us. I appreciate that.
It kind of did feel like there was like a third chair there, right? A little bit.
I know, right?